97.7 Dundalk FM.
Town Talk.
Now, we've had various guests here in the studio from Awash with Colour, a wonderful project organised here between the Artists in Art as Exchange, AAEX, and the Monaghan Poets and Songwriters group, MOPOSOGS I think they're called, where the different artists in the different groups produce a piece of art and inspire another artist that they're twinned with and who has to come up with something in their art discipline. I think that's explained it. Anyhow, the two guests I have today are Michael Stafford and Miffy Hoad. You're both very welcome.
Thank you, Pat.
Good to have you. And maybe we'll start with yourself, Miffy. You're a poet and a songwriter, am I right in saying that?
Well, I never consider myself a poet and a songwriter, even though I have written poetry and songs all my life. But yeah, it's not my bread and butter and that, but it's something that I do. And I joined MOPOSOGS about 3 years ago when I moved to Monaghan. And it was kind of a social prescription to myself to get out there and meet people. And Dara is an amazing woman. I met her through work, and she coordinates all these groups, including the Different Keys Choir, who I joined as well. But MOPOSOGS is a group that meet and write together and set homework, and you get a word, and that's your prompt for your homework and stuff. So that's how I came into MOPOSOGS, as much as anything for the social end of it, and also just to keep my hand in with a little bit of writing, you know. Right.
And I can take it from your accent there that you're not Monaghan. You said you moved to Monaghan. You're Donegal, are you?
I identify as Donegal, yeah. Yeah. Originally from Wales. Yeah.
Originally from Wales, so you've got a lot of a mix in there.
Been around a bit, yeah.
Tell me, your name is interesting, Miffy Hoad. I've never met a Miffy or a Hoad.
My dad was Scottish, so Hoad is a Scottish name. He had Anglo-Scot heritage, so Hoad, yeah, there's Hoad's down about Galway as well, but they put an E on the end. We don't have an E on the end of our Hoad.
and Miffy as well?
Well, that's a nickname that stuck.
Right.
You can blame my brother and sister for that. But yeah.
Well done, well done. And I'll go over to yourself, Michael. I think we've met before, Michael.
We have, yeah.
And
I was in here with Kieran Redmond.
Yes, yes.
I did the abstract painting. He did he wrote the poem, and I did the abstract painting to it.
Okay, so welcome back. So you know exactly what we're doing here, as I say. So look, basically, as I mentioned at the start there, that you're each asked to produce a piece of art, whether it's a song or a poem or a painting or whatever, and that's going to inspire somebody else. So who's inspiring who in this pairing? Who's the originator?
Well, I painted the painting, and Miffy came up with this marvellous song. I know the viewers can't see this one, but you can get a wee glimpse of this. I couldn't bring it in.
Well, just to remind people, because as I understand it from talking to you previously, Michael, you guys sort of MOPOSOGS and the AAEX, so Louth Monaghan artists, basically you connected, but you connected because of lockdown and everything through Zoom, so you didn't physically meet up. So you guys were all zooming away and trying to inspire each other, and then you were randomly twinned from the sound of things with different people.
Yep.
Yeah,
that's pretty much it.
So you guys got lucky and got each other. Okay, so Michael, you're the man that has to produce something that's going to inspire Miffy.
Well, I made at the beginning. We were led to Artists Exchange. If we had works we wanted to send over to Monaghan to the poets, most of us already had works made.
Right.
Which was, I don't know how unfortunate that could have been for the Monaghan poets and songwriters.
We'll find out in a minute.
Because we already had stuff ready to go, and they had to kind of. But then we reciprocated. We got stuff then. But,
so you're on the receiving end.
We got to go first.
So it's a two-way street. This. Yeah.
So we got.
So you had something prepared earlier that you were going to send to Miffy.
I couldn't bring this painting in because it's about 1.5 meters long.
Okay, so you
can get a wee glimpse
on
of
your
it there.
device there. Yes, I can see it now. Could you describe it for the listeners, please?
Essentially, I suppose in many ways you could describe it as abstract with a figure in it. You could also describe it maybe as a piece of graffiti. I think actually Miffy's song describes it beautifully, which we get
we'll hear that
maybe
later.
So it could be just it's a bit pop. It's figurative. It's kind of a wee bit street art.
I could see that now.
But it's got abstract elements to it.
It'd be great now for the Sikh Festival here in Dundalk, somewhere on a gable end, wouldn't it?
That's a different story altogether. I've done some work for them in the past.
Oh, have you? Right. Well, that's a different scale. What scale is the actual original of that piece?
The original is about It's about 1.25 metre wide.
Wow, so it's a fine piece.
By about 70, 80 high cm.
So you had worked on this prior to the Awash with Colour project.
Yeah.
So you had that ready to go, and you felt it would be appropriate. What do you call your piece?
That's called The Seeker.
The Seeker. Okay, it's called The Seeker because in the middle of it...
Because do we figure...
I'm sorry, bring it back to the mic there.
The figure looks like she's looking for something. I may add, it's hard to tell whether she... Well, I took it from a photograph of my wife, and she's a female. Which I took a long time ago. And she appeared in that painting, which is only a year old, I suppose.
Only a year old. Okay, so Michael's produced The Seeker here, this piece of semi-abstract art that could be on a gable end, perhaps. He sends it, a soft copy, is it, across to yourself, Miffy? You don't see the original, do you?
Yeah. Well, what I get is an email from Dara with 2 paintings, one from Caoimhe O'Dwyer and one from Michael Stafford.
So you're doubly inspired, right?
Yeah, so I responded to Caoimhe's art as well. But when it came to Michael's, I hadn't met Michael at this stage. The first time Michael and I met was on a Zoom where I sang the song over Zoom and his picture was up on the screen being shared. That was our first encounter.
So this is the song that you composed in response to this piece of art?
To tell the truth, there was a kernel of a song there already.
Okay.
From quite some time ago. That was a lyric and a bit of a tune that was kind of mulling around and never really went anywhere. And there were bits that just didn't fit with it. So when I looked at Michael's piece here, The Seeker, what I saw was this figure, this person emerging from a shell, and the shell, it looked like a shell to me.
And I can see why you'd say that, yeah.
It looked like within the shell was a whole kind of world happening. And the song is called Come On Out of Your Shell. And I wrote those lyrics came to me originally when I was kind of searching a bit, you know. Anyway, when I saw the picture, those lyrics came into my head, and it all just it was really strange. Like it really just all clicked and fit together. And I picked up the guitar and I started strumming, and I got back into the little riff I had going on when I was, when the lyric first came to me. And out popped this song, which is what it is, like. But it's just curious. There's just lots of little synchronicities.
And could I ask you, Miffy, when you saw the copy of the painting here, you weren't given a title. You just saw the visual, no words.
I did have the title.
Oh, you did.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay.
The Seeker was there, and and that's all. I didn't know Michael. I'd never met him before.
Right.
So it was just a piece of art, really. That's what I saw, and so. Yeah, so that.
I'm going to just ask the whole process of seeing and then coming up with a song. How long did it take, that process of inspiration, to, I suppose, end up with a song?
Well, I suppose because I had the kernel of it there, it probably took me a couple of days to sort of really polish it up, and for all these little pieces that hadn't been fitting together to find other bits that fitted. I don't know if that makes sense. Maybe other songwriters or something will understand what I'm saying. It's a curious old thing. It's very intuitive. It's not something that you think about. It's something that you feel, and so as it's happening, it just all happens. And afterwards, you can kind of go, "Ooh, that was kind of weird."
And can I ask you? And I've asked this of other Awash with Colour participants before. Normally when you perform something, there's an anxiety about the first time you perform and how people receive it. But when you're performing something for another artist who has provided his piece of inspiration, is that even more anxious?
Yeah, it is, because you don't know if you've hit the mark. You don't know if you've actually interpreted it in any way close to what they were representing in their art. And you have to trust what you've produced, and you have to hope that it lands. I think I was lucky enough that it landed.
When we were at the end of a 2-hour session on the Zoom thing, there was, I don't know how many people had gone previous, and we were last, and I didn't know whether this work was going to get...
That's even more pressure, because you're hearing all this wonderful stuff back and forward.
I don't know about Miffy, but I was going on, maybe it's next week, you know, and these are big lumps of 2 hours of people expressing themselves poetry-wise, and people putting in some very expressive pieces of art. And and Miffy was called up to do the song, and she paired with Michael Stafford. And I was, oh, gee.
And this is live?
Yeah, this is at the end of 2 hours, yeah.
Wow.
And so Miffy picks up a guitar, and I mean, breaks into the song you're going to hear. And I was absolutely flabbergasted. First of all, I didn't think anybody could write anything about this. Like, I write songs myself. I couldn't write anything about this. And I was blown away. And at the end of it, I was the breath was taken. It was absolutely profoundly gorgeous.
And what was it about the song that you found profoundly gorgeous?
Because I started thinking about the painting in a complete different way then. And it actually, to many, I suppose, even if you saw this on a gable end, I suppose a lot of graffiti art to a certain degree, and even contemporary art, comes across, especially modern art, can come across a wee bit cold. But somehow Miffy put some feeling in this, and I was blown away by that, especially after 2 hours. And at the moment I'm making an animation of it, because I thought as soon as...
An animation of
this painting, yeah.
Wow.
Because as soon as I heard it, I could see the character moving in and around the painting, coming out of the shell.
Well, there's a lot of movement in that painting.
Yeah, so I've started working on the animation. We've both seen the prototypes for it. It's not quite ready yet, though.
Right. So I know that the Awash with Colour will have an exhibition in Intas in Castle Blaney. How is the song end of that going to be handled in an exhibition, or will it be handled?
Well, what we hope to have, public health restrictions
of course,
allowing,
yes,
is an event on the 9th of December where those of us who have either songs or poems will perform them live with a backdrop of the piece of art
on a big screen or something like that.
Onto a screen.
Brilliant.
That's the idea, and so let's all hope that
in the summertime it's moving. We've also got it in Anton Centre as well now.
So we'll have it here in town as well.
Yeah. So that's in the summertime. So that's too. It's growing, and it's got a life of its own now.
And I know there are dozens and dozens. And you mentioned you had 2 hours of a Zoom, so you'll have dozens of pieces to perform and exhibit.
I
don't know how many pieces are being formed on.
There's about 92 or 94 pieces. Like, I submitted 2 poems.
Right. Yeah.
And so 2 artists got those 2 poems to respond to.
Mm-hmm.
And then I received 2 pieces of art to respond to. So there's 4 pieces of work.
Just like
that's
that,
8 pieces of work,
huge.
actually. Do you know what I mean? Between 2 people,
actually.
I mean, the whole process is literally inspiring, because all of you have been inspiring each other and coming up with wonderful new pieces.
It's been very profound, Pat, actually. And I wanted to say, too, about the other pieces. I mean, it wasn't just with Michael's piece that I had this experience of this kind of intuitive kind of stuff happening. The other pieces had happened too. Even the piece I submitted 2 poems, and one of them in particular, the woman responded with a piece of art. It was Jenny Slater.
Yep.
To my piece, and in it she depicted 4 children playing, and I happen to have 4 children.
Wow.
You know, and the piece I'd written was in my early career of being a parent, and I only had 2 at that stage. But I think in art forms there's an essence of the whoever created the piece of art, their essence is in it, and I think that other intuitive artists then pick up on that essence, and I think that has happened a huge amount in this.
Well, there's more than intuition there when she picks up on 4 children.
Well, yeah, but I think that none of it is necessarily conscious. Kiva Dyer's piece was an abstract piece of art, and I'll be honest, I'm not all that turned on by abstract art, but this was a really beautiful piece as well, no more than Michael's, that spoke to me. It was like this blue wash with these gold streaks through it, and what I saw was the ocean with islands. And when I went to write about it, I wanted to write about coming out onto the islands, and I wasn't let. It was like, no, this is about between the islands, and that's what the poem was called, Between the Islands, and that's what it was, all about, being, the sort of existential stuff of being in between the islands and what happens to us there. And I think it meant quite a lot to Caoimhe, you know, from what I gather. And I don't know Caoimhe, but I know she's a sea swimmer. And I know that she's been bereaved lately, and I know that it spoke to her because of that.
Yeah, she was quite blown away by it, wasn't she? Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's great to hear you talking about the way you're inspiring people you don't know in a very personal way almost.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Miffy, you inspired Caoimhe as your sort of reciprocal inspiration as part of the Awash with Colour, and then you had also received was it from Miffy or
no?
From
I
else?
received a poem from Kieran Redmond.
Oh yeah, so we did. Talk
It was
about
actually
that,
called the Awash with Colour, which the whole thing came about.
So which came first, the title for the project or the poem?
Well, when we all kind of met up first, I think Kieran suggested, I'm just going to throw this out here, he says in his accent, and
not a very good
bad
one.
Kieran, very bad Kieran, sorry, and he goes, Awash with Colour, and we all agreed that will do for now, and then didn't change then.
All right, there you go. So you did a Awash with Colour painting then?
I did a full abstract painting.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Brilliant stuff. So you've both now inspired each other, and at this stage, how would I put it? What's your look back if you're reviewing the project Awash with Colour and what it's meant for you and the rest of the artists from MOPOSOGS and AAEX? What would you say about it?
Oh well, for me, and I said it to Michael outside here. It's definitely been one of the silver linings of lockdown for me, because it was this thing that kept us kind of going. It inspired us all. It was very moving and profound at times, as well as fun. And it has kind of opened something up in me around creativity, most definitely, to embrace that more. You know?
Yeah. And Michael, yourself?
I've a whole host of new friends now, creative friends, and I think that's fantastic. Once upon a time, we didn't even know each other existed. Now there's writers over in Monaghan. When we met them in Culture Night down here, it was really good to see them and talk to them live in real person. And when Miffy walked in here today, I kind of felt like I knew her a wee bit.
So you didn't get to meet before?
This
No.
is our first
Oh, well,
meeting.
hello. Well, it's again all the more
It's like an old
intriguing
friend that I hadn't seen in a while.
As I say, because you're connecting in a very personal way through your art. Well, look, we're going to hear the song. Miffy, I'm going to ask you to introduce this wonderful song. So what are you going to say about it before we play it? We're going to play it in this song, okay?
Yeah, well, it's called Come On Out of Your Shell. And it's, I don't know how to introduce my own song. My goodness. Anyway, should just play it, Pat.
Just play it, Pat. Okay, Miffy Hoad and Come Out of Your Shell, inspired by Michael Stafford. This is it from Awash with Colour.
97.7 Dundalk FM.
Town Talk.